Lucas found himself at the center of a family conflict over the unexpected inheritance left to him by his late grandfather. His relatives, fueled by greed, launched a covert campaign to coerce the young heir into relinquishing his fortune. However, Lucas, wise beyond his years and guided by his grandfather's teachings, was not to be underestimated. Lucas knew the day would come when his grandfather wouldn't be the strong, wise man who had raised him after his parents had passed away. The old man had taken him in and taught him everything he knew. His childhood had been filled with puzzles, mysteries, and quests to fulfill. Lucas, at only 11 years old, had grown up to match and eventually surpass his grandfather's wisdom. In the final week, Lucas had sat vigilant by his bedside, reading to him and telling him about his day at school. It hurt Lucas to see his grandfather like this, but nothing could prepare him for the sudden bout of clarity the old man would have, or what he'd tell Lucas. It would end up being his grandfather's second to last day, but Lucas hadn't known that back then. His grandfather had been sleeping, snoring softly. Lucas was just about to start reading when his grandfather moved. His old, gnarled hand took a hold of Lucas' own hand. "Lucas, my boy," rasped his grandfather. "Listen to me very carefully." After that, it had gone too fast. Lucas would have loved to have another conversation with his grandfather. The old man would always speak to him as if Lucas were his equal and adult, despite his grandfather being the wisest, most cunning man most people had ever met. Lucas first doubted the claims he had made during that final conversation. The days after had been a rush of servants and funeral directors asking him a million questions. He answered them all to the best of his ability. Lucas hardly recognized any of the faces of the guests at his grandfather's funeral. It was like he only realized now how few visits the old man had gotten from any of his family members. He felt the weight of several scrutinizing eyes as he made his way, a mix of curiosity and hidden greed hidden behind the solemn faces. Lucas was not only carrying his grandfather's legacy but also his spirit as he became their center of attention. As the funeral director welcomed everyone, a man behind Lucas leaned in, introducing himself as his great-uncle Joseph. His voice, low and authoritative, promised assistance with settling the estate. Lucas wanted to reply, but before he could, the funeral ceremony started. Listening to the director speak of his grandfather, Lucas felt the weight of Joseph's promise. What did his offer of help entail? The tribute was marred by a snort and a yawn from behind, cutting through Lucas's grief with disrespect. Anger simmered within him. These relatives couldn't muster decorum for a man who deserved so much more. As the ceremony moved forward, Lucas observed the crowd's masked sorrow. Aunt Margaret's smile, lacking genuine warmth, caught his eye, a clear sign of her intentions. Despite their pretense, Lucas saw through the facade by his grandfather's cautionary tales. Underestimated by those who saw him as just a child, Lucas was prepared for everything coming to him, or so he hoped. At the funeral's end, Lucas found the courage to step up to the pedestal, determined to honor the man who had been more father than grandfather. His voice shook as he began, each word a testament to the love and gratitude he felt. The audience, caught in the raw honesty of his grief, as Lucas's heartfelt thanks to his grandfather moved many to tears, his vulnerability touching every soul present. After everyone else had left, Lucas approached the coffin for his final goodbye. "I'll make you proud," he promised, the vow a silent echo in the now empty hall. As Lucas watched the crowd from a distance, the pieces began to fall into place. His grandfather's warnings, once dismissed as the confused ramblings of old age, now resonated with chilling clarity. Throughout the reception, Lucas was approached by several relatives, their faces barely recognizable. They offered condolences and eager offers of assistance, their words dripping with insincerity. Lucas navigated these encounters with a polite nod. Aunt Margaret caught Lucas just as he was about to escape the stifling atmosphere of the reception. She cornered him with questions about the will, her curiosity barely masked his concern. Lucas, however, stood firm, echoing his grandfather's sternness. He assured her that all arrangements were in hand and that invitations to the will reading would be sent in due time. And leaving the reception behind, Lucas sought refuge in the quiet of his late grandfather's estate. He instructed the driver to take him home, the mansion standing as a testament to the legacy now resting on his young shoulders. Sitting in his grandfather's study, Lucas felt the stark absence of the old man who had filled the room with warmth and wisdom. The lawyer, Mr. Dawson, with the air of a man on the cusp of retirement, shared how Lucas's grandfather had entrusted him with this final task. He wanted no one else to handle his will, he explained, his voice tinged with a respect born of years of camaraderie. Lucas took a deep breath before voicing his concerns about his family's intrusive behavior. Together, Lucas and Mr. Dawson decided that delaying the reading of the will would only invite further scheming. They worked to draft the invitations, setting the date for the day after next. The day unfolded with a marked shift in Lucas' interactions with his factions, with his family. Gone were the hollow offers of support, replaced by a stream of relatives whose intentions were clear and far from kind. Each visitor, from distant uncles to so-called nephews, made bold, unabashed claims to his grandfather's fortune. The line of claimants seemed endless, each more audacious than the last. Even a frail, ancient man, purporting to be his grandfather's brother, joined the fray, his eyes alight with greed. Immediately, the tactics grew darker as one relative after another attempted to sway Lucas with threats and blackmail. Their words, sharp and venomous, aimed to unsettle, to coerce him into betraying his grandfather's trust. Aunt Margaret, sitting right next to Lucas, couldn't keep her cool for 2 seconds. She told Mr. Dawson to just get on with it and called Lucas's granddad an old fool. Mr. Dawson started reading, and the room went super quiet, like everyone was holding their breath. Lucas's grandpa had made his final wishes pretty clear, leaving no room for second guesses. When Mr. Dawson got to the part about everything being left to a person who deserves it, you could practically see the dollar signs in some of their eyes. The bombshell dropped. Everything was going to Lucas because, according to his grandpa, he was the only one who really deserved any of it. The kicker was that Lucas was now the guy who'd decide if anyone else in the room got a piece of the pie. Now, everyone was suddenly very interested in Lucas, wondering what he'd do next. They couldn't believe Lucas's grandpa had left everything to him, an 11-year-old. Lucas wondered if any of them actually cared about what his grandpa wanted or just what they could get. Mr. Dawson mentioned another letter, this one just for Lucas. Hearing that perked Lucas right up. A secret letter? Without saying anything, he unfolded it, ready to find out what his grandpa had to say just to him. With the family members back in the study, Lucas stood up to address them, his voice steady. The room fell silent, every pair of eyes locked on him, curious and perhaps a bit skeptical. "I'm giving everyone here a chance," Lucas began. "A single chance to show you deserve part of Grandpa's fortune." Lucas explained that his grandfather cherished puzzles, mysteries, and the thrill of solving them. "If you want to share, you'll have to prove your worth through puzzles and riddles, just like Grandpa decided I was worthy," he declared. The room buzzed with mixed reactions, some intrigued, others clearly baffled. Lucas watched them closely, ready to see who would rise to the challenge. With the game of fortune wasn't just about the inheritance, it was about honoring his grandfather's values and seeing who else in his family shared those virtues. The mansion came alive with whispers and footsteps as the game kicked off. Lucas had hidden clues everywhere, turning the place into a giant puzzle, challenging each family member to think and explore like never before. By sunset, the mansion felt quieter, emptier. Those who couldn't crack Lucas's riddles found themselves gently escorted out. Watching his family navigate the challenges, Lucas was hit by a wave of nostalgia. This was how his grandpa had taught him through adventure, puzzles, and the joy of discovery. On the last day of the grand adventure, Lucas had all his remaining family back in the grand study. Sitting in his grandfather's chair, "I'm sure you're all curious why we're here again," Lucas started, only to get cut off by Aunt Margaret's sharp tone. "What's this all about, Lucas?" Her glare could have drilled holes, but Lucas, channeling his inner calm grandpa, decided to ignore it and keep on. Lucas dived into explaining about this last letter his grandpa had left him, a sort of secret final level of the game. You could see the wheels turning in everyone's heads, trying to figure out what the twist was. Lucas announced they were about to embark on the final gambit, his grandpa's last challenge, and oh boy, the anticipation in the room spiked. Lucas's last test was surprisingly straightforward. He asked each family member, "What would you do with your share of the inheritance?" One by one they shared their plans, each hoping to secure their slice of the fortune, unaware of the true nature of Lucas's final evaluation. "All of you failed," Lucas declared. The room went from tense silence to an uproar of confusion. The real test wasn't about cleverness but character, and in this, it seemed everyone had missed the mark. "Every single one of you wanted the money for yourselves," he pointed it out. This wasn't just about not sharing with each other, it was about the complete disregard for the wider needs that the fortune could address. Lucas took the moment to explain his decision. He would keep the estate and enough funds to care for it and the staff until he came of age. The rest, he revealed, would go to those who truly needed it, charities and people in need. This was his grandfather's legacy, one that Lucas was determined to honor in the most meaningful way possible.